So the UTS Animal Logic Academy, what is it? What do we do? So the logline is the UTS Animal Logic Academy is a collaboration between UTS and Australia's leading 3D animation studio, Animal Logic, set up to address the talent gap in the booming animation industry in Australia and internationally. So what does that mean? Basically, what was happening is that industry was discovering that people coming into industry, especially juniors who've never worked in a studio before, were really kind of struggling with the studio environment, how to work, and because it's vastly different than coming from university. The way approaches work, the way you kind of collaborate, it's a very, very different experience. And it was taking some people up to a year to kind of climatize to that way of working. So the MAV was created, the Animal Logic Academy was created in order to set up a learning environment that reflected in the way industry works. So we go through the same pipeline, the same tools, the same processes as these companies, as Flying Bark, as Animal Logic, as ILM. And we run everything the same way from 9 to 5. So we do dailies in the morning, we do desk rounds in the afternoon. We're not really a traditional give lectures kind of way of learning, but you learn by doing. And also there's a big factor of that, which is the soft skills that I think Rachel's going to talk about later, which is, how to communicate, how to collaborate, and how to take feedback. And it all kind of helps people get ready for industry and learn what it's like to work in a studio environment. At the moment, we're going through a boom in the animation industry. There's a lot of work coming to Sydney, coming to Australia, in fact. A lot of the studios have work on for the coming years. Actually, there's a lot happening here. ILM moved here recently, and as if any of you are keeping an eye on socials or an eye on what these studios are working on, you'll see that there's a lot happening in these studios. So right now, we really need to fill that junior base. I mean, they're really desperate for these of these locals to fill those positions. All right, so we do something here called the MAV, the Master of Animation and Visualization. So what is that? It's a master's course, obviously, but most master's courses go for a year and a half, and you only do them a couple of nights a week, and it's part-time. We run ours very differently because we want to reflect how things are done in studio. So ours is what's called an accelerated master's degree. So it's 1 year, and it's a pretty intense degree, but it's a lot of fun, and it takes students from generalists to specialists in order to get them into graduate roles in industry by giving you the studio experience. So yeah, it really does, it is a master's degree, but it really does reflect the way that kind of studio runs. But because we do it so intensely, it really is just that 1 year. And there we go. There's a shot of our studio at the Academy. We used to work in dark, but Dylan, do you remember, sorry, I had to stop on this for a second, because there used to be this thing back in the 90s where everyone on a computer had to work in a dark room. And do you remember that? Back in the day, it was like this whole weird block out the windows thing.
Yep. You could tell the animators. I remember a lot of the animation industry was kind of centered in Crow's Nest. And so there was a lot of companies in that kind of area. And you could, even if you didn't know who, all the different people that worked at all the different companies, you could spot the animators because they're all the pale ones.
Yeah. Everyone just hiding in the dark room from, all hours. Yeah, I'm glad that's gone. Actually, I think only the lighters and the color graders now want to be in dark, but yeah. Okay, here's another cool thing. The MAV is taught by industry professionals. Dylan and I both started together in the kind of late 90s. Between us have worked across a lot of features. Our lighting lead, Chris, has also been in the industry for decades as well, and has worked across a lot of projects. So we still maintain a relationship with these companies, and we bring a lot of experience of working on these kind of projects to the cohort, to the kind of learning experience, because it's important that we're getting people ready for industry by teaching them, so they can hit the ground running. really. And that is something that we've heard from professionals in industry, that they love our graduates because they are ready, they know the right processes, they know the right pipeline and tools. And it's something that we've heard countless times from places where our graduates have gone. All right, so just a quick thing on how the year is broken up. So instead of doing a 4 semesters throughout the year, we actually do 3 trimesters. And it's broken up in, so Studio 1, we call it, is the connected studio, but in that studio we do the pre-production for the short film. So the short film is what we work on together across the entire year. So that's another thing that's different with us versus other kind of how things are done at university or other colleges, in that the entire cohort works together on one project, the same way that you would do if you're at one of these other companies. So we all work together on the one project. Then in Studio 2, the collaboration studio, so this is really, we take a break here, and this is one part where it does break off differently, and the students break up into smaller teams and work on an emerging technology project. So this year it was, we asked the students to kind of work on something narrative based, but they worked on, everything from EbSynth to deepfake to virtual production. Hey Jess, what was the one that you did this year? What was your...
For Studio 2?
For Studio 2, yeah.
We did virtual production for the Anzac.
Oh, you're working on the Anzac one. Yeah, that was virtual production, and then in Unreal as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So Studio 2, the students kind of work on these different projects, and they pitch it to a panel of industry experts who choose which one has the most potential. And then in Studio 3, we finished both projects. We finished the Studio 2 project and the short film. So it gets pretty intense. We're right in the middle of Studio 3 now, but it's it's a lot of fun. Look at this list. All right, so these are a bunch of studios where our graduates have found work. So, I mean, look, you can go through, I don't need to kind of name them all, but really, loads and loads of places, not just in Australia, but overseas as well. We're currently running at around a bit over 90% in terms of our graduate employment rate, which is just fantastic. And we spend a good part of Studio 3 working with the graduates, with the students on showreel CVs and how to apply and what to focus on when they're getting out into industry. A few of our achievements. We're ranked in the top 10 schools in the world by the Rookies. We've won awards at SAGRAPH, the Rookies, and AEAF. Just recently, we won some for last year's projects as well. And as I said, over 90% of the graduates find industry jobs within 6 months. Brilliant. So what I might do now, I might stop sharing my screen so we can see everyone, and might ask Rachel a few questions. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Hi. So, what has studio life been like at Flying Bark recently?
Well, I'm going to say different than usual, thanks to COVID, but we do try and maintain the same kind of feeling as much as we can, even virtually. But yeah, I guess Flying Bark is kind of unique. Well, in Australia more so than worldwide, but I'm going to say unique anyway because I'm biased and I think we're awesome. But yeah, so you if you work for us, you'll have the opportunity to work on projects. Some of them have quite a small team in-house. Some of them have really big ones. We've got 2D, we've got 3D, we've got 2.5D. So there's some pretty cool stuff going on under the one roof, which is
it's awesome. Great.
And I mean, we also do a mixture of work, what we call service work. So that's working for studios like some of our clients at the moment. We've got Marvel, Disney, Nickelodeon, Lego, things like that. And we also have the IP side of the company, which is intellectual property. So that's the projects where we fund them and produce them ourselves. So it's like we're the client in that case. Which is pretty cool, to be honest. It's really
cool, and it's rare, isn't it? There's not many studios, to be honest, around that are able to do that. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, we will have people like directors and editors and like really key people that maybe that's a role that you guys are aspiring to be one day. It's like we have several of those just walking around the office. And, you know, you get to rub shoulders with people like that, or maybe people doing jobs that you've never even heard of yet. And you're like, that's so cool. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. It's that's kind of what's cool about the industry, really. It's like, it doesn't matter how much study you do, there's still some real niche jobs that you come across. You're like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
So, you know, you're in recruitment and HR, and so what are the skill sets that you kind of look for, especially, I guess, the juniors coming into industry?
I would say that, well, I mean, the work itself is only part of what makes up the studio life. It's also, I would say, influenced on how you approach it. So one of the really big things that I think is important to know is that it's a bit of a cliche, but there's no I in team. It's like, you will not get through this industry without working in a team. You just won't. So it's really amazing the results that can be produced when you do work together in a team and collaborate in that kind of way. And I think remembering that that's why everyone is there is also part of it. Like, you're all, you know, bringing your own skills to the table so that you can make the best possible thing together.
Yeah.
So it's about recognizing that, and also remembering that, especially if you're a junior, like, you don't know it all. Even if you did super well at uni, even if you do super well at your MAV at ALA, like, you know, that's awesome, and that will definitely set you up. But yeah, you still have to go into the industry hungry to learn, because you will never stop doing that. And yeah, so things like that are super important, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, it's those soft skills, isn't it? It's communication and collaboration, really.
Absolutely.
And look, I mean, I'm biased, but you've got a bunch of students who have come through from the MAV. I mean, how have they been doing? Like, any like, you know, what is it like, I guess, for people coming in who have got a little bit of studio experience, or whether it's from studio, or whether it's from a place like us from the academy, versus people coming straight from undergraduate degrees? Like, have you found them struggling to once they're in studio?
Look, sometimes, and sometimes it's not because of the person either. Like, you know, things happen outside of yourself that, like, no one saw COVID coming, for example. So all the juniors that I've hired in the last, like, I'm going to say 18 months, a lot of them have started from home. And when it's your first industry job, and you know, it's nerve-wracking enough, and then starting in a situation where it's like, you can't turn around and tap the shoulder of your lead or your buddy, or you know, you obviously have lots of different ways of communicating with them, but it's different. And that face-to-face kind of interaction is something that a lot of people just miss socially as well as in professionally. So that's really tricky. But I think that, I mean, you did kind of talk about it before in terms of what the MAV will give you, but a lot of those skills are like the teamwork that we mentioned before, like working in the studio, well, at the MAV studio, it's like a mini version of that. It's probably the closest that you can get to experience what it's like at a studio before actually being at a studio. So, I mean, there's differences. Every workplace has its own quirks. Maybe there's slightly different departments involved depending on where you go. The workflow, things like that, is something that you'll always have to kind of adapt to, especially if you do change jobs, you know, move around a bit or whatever. There's always a little bit of a learning curve, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry, that will continue. It just is easier when you have the knowledge to kind of, or experience of doing it before, to back that up.
100%.
Yeah.
And what about, like, for you? You came through JMC, right? So how did you kind of find that experience going from there then into industry for your first few jobs?
So for everyone that doesn't know, I actually have a degree in 3D animation. So I have being where most of you probably have, I would say. And yeah, so I do understand exactly what it's like to kind of experience all the different departments and not really know, maybe you haven't even decided what specialization you want to do yet, or you want to be a generalist, or you want to be a director, and you're like, okay, well, how do I get there? That's kind of the long-term goal for that. But I think more specifically, kind of what I said before about you don't know everything yet. Like, even for me, I was well aware of that. I did uni not that long ago, so I was a lot older than a lot of the other people that I went to uni with. And I had a bit more life experience because of that. Like, I'd worked full time, I'd traveled, those kind of things that just kind of give you context outside of work that helps, I don't know, charity, lack of, who knows. But so all of those things do make a little bit of a difference. But still, I started my job and I was just like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But I think it's a matter of, that's where things like the communication comes in handy, because ask questions. Everyone is there to kind of help each other get there, basically. So like, when you're hired as a junior, we know you're a junior. It's not like we're expecting you to perform at the same level as your lead. Like, nobody's expecting that. So I think that something that people are really afraid of is asking the questions, because they don't want to seem like they don't know what they're doing. And there's definitely an element of, you should kind of know what you're doing. It's kind of why we hire you. But I would say that you're better off asking the questions and getting the answers properly, rather than sitting there on a shot for way longer than you should, and like stressing over it and not getting it right, because then maybe you don't hit the deadline, and that's a problem. So ask the questions. There's lots of people around who can help you, and I think you will find that people like sharing their experience, their tips and tricks. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, here's a script to help you set up something that's going to like change your life. It's just going to make this so much easier. Or there's tools that can be created by pipeline teams to help do some of the stuff that lets you be more creative with what you're doing, or I don't know, whatever. Like, there's sometimes ways to fix things, or just approach things. Even sometimes it's really hard to even start, especially in animation. Like,
absolutely.
It's a subjective thing. So
it is, isn't it? I mean, it's such a good point to ask questions. It's one of the things we keep telling our graduates to. One of the things they should always ask in an interview is, what are the expectations of a junior? And it often alleviates the pressure and the stress when they know it's like, oh, I can do that. I'm not expected to deliver 3 shots a day, or, it's that knowing that expectation and what's actually needed of them is as you said, the industry knows their juniors and what they're capable of.
Yeah, I think actually that's a really good point too, about more specifically, the idea of quota was something that I didn't really think of much at uni, because you don't really need to. But obviously now that I'm employing people and understand how schedules work and that kind of side of things, quota is a really big thing and it's not just for animators. You can have quota for basically, for those who maybe don't know, it's how many shots a day or a week, or however it's judged in that studio, you're expected to complete. And usually it's an approval, not just a submit a version of type thing. And that varies a lot. For us at Flying Bark, TV series have a different schedule to film, for example. So films generally will give you more time, because I'm not sure why, there's usually just a quality difference. I think it's actually a trend that's ending. I feel like TV has really upped its game.
It really has. Yeah. I mean, I remember my first, back in the day, my first couple of features were animating at 4 seconds a week. That was the feature kind of level, Happy Feet, Legend of the Guardians kind of time.
Yeah. And
then VFX was sort of like the 8 to 10 seconds. And then TV was anywhere from 16 and above, and it was it was really kind of, and you could tell it was, just smash it out as quickly as possible. But nowadays, as you said, the quality of work, say of What If, what's coming through, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun one for us, I will say. It's also a different style for us. So just speaking purely about the animation of it, I mean, a lot of Flybark's previous work is aimed at a younger kind of demographic, and it's very like squash and stretchy, cartoony sort of style animation. Whereas with What If, like obviously it's not photoreal kind of VFX style, but they do want it to be more realistic in the way that the characters move, because they're people essentially. So yeah, it's interesting to see how that works. But I will say that our quota is not 16 seconds a week. If that just freaked any of you out.
It shows. It's good.
It is less than that.
Good. Hey, Jess, so you came straight from, from your undergraduate degree into the MAV. And so obviously, working at uni, you would have been working on kind of either smaller teams or smaller projects. How have you found that jump coming from that kind of way of working and approach to where we're at the MAV now, where everyone's working together, you've got separate teams, and you're all on the same project?
Well, I guess for background, I came from UX and graphic design. So
that's right.
Moving into this studio life with maybe like 30 other people, I guess I've never really experienced that before. And like going back to what Rachel was saying about there's no I in team, which is funny because like the MAV is really collaborative, and you find that everyone's skills are really important in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to work with each other at all times, and communication is really key. So I guess it was quite a big jump because in my past course, I guess there was kind of like a hierarchy, like almost like lecturer and student, and you have to like go to your study rooms or the library. But here everyone works on like the floor, which is sort of like where all the computers are. And you're working with everyone, and everyone gets up for the same dailies. And I really like the aspect where I guess we're in that stage where we're doing lighting now. So you sort of log in, and then you go into ShotGrid and you see everyone's work coming together. And I think that's like the really cool part about working in the pipeline, because I specialize in 3D modeling, and which is like kind of at the start of the pipeline, but you see it getting surfaced and then animated, and now we're seeing the lighting come in, and it's really cool to see it all come together. And I think like that's like the great aspect of working in a team, is like seeing it all come to fruition.
It's so cool, isn't it? That was always my go-to at pretty much every company. You load up the ShotGrid or whatever publishing system it is, and see every department's kind of work as it's coming together. And it's great because you can only get so far creating stuff on your own. There are some amazing people out there who are creating content on their own, but you have to model, you have to read, you have to animate and surface and light and do the entire thing. But when you have a group of people working together on sort of one project, you can see how high the quality level gets to, and so it shows in the reels at the end, it shows in the project at the end as well. It's such a fun process. So yeah, that's right. Just so you've been focusing on modeling throughout the process, and on Apart, and then obviously on the Studio 2 project. So what were you doing on Apart? By the way, sorry, for those who don't know, this year's short film is called Apart. So Jess, what were you doing on that?
I was doing a lot of the 3D modeling for Apart.
Yeah, great. Did you have anything you wanted to show?
Oh yeah, I got some turntables prepared.
Okay, great.
Can you show them? Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah. Oh, that's right, the briefcase.
Yeah. So I wanted to show this one because it was my very first hero asset that I got given to me, because I sort of started the year in art department, and then somewhere along the line I found an interest in 3D modeling. And this was my first hero asset that was given to me. So I guess it was sort of like a special moment because like it was, it looks like a very simple asset, but it was sort of a time where I had to like almost like prove that I'm a competent modeler so I can work towards more bigger hero assets. And then I also have this one, which is the bigger hero asset that I was given towards the end.
Well, this is really like one of the main assets in the film, isn't it? This is
Yeah.
this is the main sculpture. Yeah.
Yeah, there were 3 of these sculptures, but luckily I got given the last sculpture, which is
So
really cool.
this is made of bits of welded metal and found
Yeah.
metal, by the way. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fantastic, Jess. And
So-
I remember when you made that briefcase, you spent so much time, you made such a beautiful, perfect briefcase. I'm like, oh, it's lovely, but it looks like it's straight out of the store. It's got, now you've got to mess it up.
Yeah.
Hang
And
it
I'm
up.
glad I did that as well because it looks more organic.
Yeah, completely. It looks
Yeah.
great. And all those little curves and bumps and stuff, and they show up in lighting and surfacing beautifully as well now. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
great.
I feel like I've, I guess, grown as a 3D modeler over the year. And I also wanted to show this model as well because I wanted to talk about our Fridays that we get given. So on Fridays, we have sort of self-learning Fridays, and you get to really hone your own skills. So on my Fridays, I collaborated with some other students to sort of work on a short film of our own, which is basically a fight scene between a robot and almost like a Godzilla monster. So I was given this hero asset, which is really cool. And
That's
I got to make this mech, and it's like 80 meters tall.
Oh, that's so cool. It's great seeing people work on these projects on the side, because at the end of the year, the students who've been working on these extra little projects have just like that little bit more to chuck on their reels, your reels to show. And it's just fantastic seeing these projects come together, that we're not sort of, it's happening in the background. Every now and then we'll see something on a screen that's kind of being rendered. It's like, wait a second, what's that? That's awesome.
Yeah, and we have monthlies as well,
Yeah.
where you get to see other people's work and what they've been doing behind the scenes, and not just our main project. And it's really cool to see how much people
it's
have
fun.
improved.
Yeah. Rachel, are you still doing monthlies at Flying Bark?
Not so much lately.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
We're trying.
Yeah.
So we used to have, we call it cakelies because sure, why not? We had cake every week.
Yeah.
For birthdays, basically, because there's quite a few of us now. So every week we would have cake in the studio, or donuts was the thing that we started doing a little while ago, but obviously COVID nixed that.
Yeah.
Sharing of food is generally frowned upon now.
Yeah.
But yeah, end of month drinks, we would usually have a much bigger thing where everyone would come down and do their own thing. But I mean, up until probably about a year ago, we were actually spread over 3 different studios. So every studio had its own version of that. And with our new studio in Alexandria, it finally finished being constructed, really.
Yeah.
So we're all under the one roof now. And
Which is great.
yeah.
And are you at the moment, like right now, do you have people who are still working remotely?
Yeah, so we're all still working remotely at the moment. But I guess before this last outbreak, a lot of us did go back in. So we've kind of taken a very flexible approach to this because we can, really. So there's some people who could not wait to get back in the studio as soon as they possibly could, because some people just really don't like working from home. Some people have kids that are, there and loud. Other people have really bad internet and it just makes working really difficult. Other people are like, please never make me go back to the studio. I love it here. I get work done. So we have taken an open approach in saying, as much as we can, let's try and make it work for how you do. So
Okay.
me personally, I did both. I was like a couple of days in the studio, a couple of days at home, and then the last day varied. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
I mean, look, that's what we're doing at the moment, right, Jess? I mean, how are you finding the sort of online experience? Because we're running the same kind of reviews. We're doing our kind of reviews over Slack and Zoom and ShotGrid as well. How are you finding it?
Honestly, I think after you get over the transition, because we started the year at studio, and then COVID happened, and then we had to go online. But after the maybe like a few days of transitioning, it's been fine. Like we have a really good IT team as well that's helping us with the VPN and everything. So like we run dailies the same and all of our meetings are the same. So I think, I mean, the key part from working at home is that my fridge is like less than 10 meters away. So, I can get snacks faster.
And are you using the social Zoom room? Do you ever jump into that? Yeah.
Sometimes on Fridays we do some games.
Great.
So that's pretty fun because you still get to talk to your peers. And obviously you can have the Zoom open.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, so it sucked when we had everyone kind of go home, but really, it's the same as all the other companies, right, Rachel? I mean, everyone kind of had to jump back home, but there are ways of kind of making it seem like everyone's still together. And so we do have this social Zoom room, but we do have some other students who just have like like an animation room or a lighting room, so they're on that the whole time. So they can just work and then maybe just talk or ask a question and someone will be there. So it feels like, you're in the room with other people, which is kind of fun. So Rachel, right now, yes, the industry is going well, but are there some jobs or positions that are more in demand than others?
Yes, is the short answer to that question. I would say that it's probably a shorter list to say what is not in demand at the moment. Yeah, I think over the last maybe 12 months, I've probably hired juniors in almost every department that we have. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of work going around. And I mean, obviously the sort of roles that we have can vary a little bit from some other studios, but generally I've seen a lot of competition around animators, modelers, surfacing artists, riggers, lighting. Lighting is a huge thing for me at the moment. If any of you know Katana and want a junior lighting role, hit me up. But there's also things that are a little bit different. So for example, we have layout artists at Flying Bark, and a layout artist for us is different from what a layout artist at ILM is, for example, because they call their layout artists what pretty much the rest of the industry would call either a tracking or a match move artist. And those are not departments that we have because the nature of animation is that it is, full CG or 2D. So we don't need those kinds of skills because we don't have live action plates to track, basically. So a layout artist for us they are often the same skills, but it's used in a different way. And even people who are experienced in VFX don't necessarily have the experience doing it the way that we do. So sometimes the same thing can be a little bit different company to company. And also another department like that would be compositors. So we have compositors in-house and we will hire junior compositors. And I have, in fact, hired junior compositors straight from ALA. And that is something that's pretty rare in VFX because usually people will go in through the roto or cleanup sort of line of career progression. Yeah. You learn those skills, you use them, you build it up, and then you move into compositing. Whereas for us, we don't have roto or cleanup like that either. So it can be a more direct route, but the full CG experience is kind of important for that. But there's also kind of other roles that people don't really think about. So like production is one. When I finished my course at uni, I thought I wanted to do production. So I was probably a rarity, I would say. But there are so many other people who want to get into it, which is really cool. But there's also tech roles like TAs, TDs, pipeline, IT. They are so hard to find, especially with industry experience. So, or like interest even. We're constantly stealing people from each other as an industry. So,
I mean, we're constantly trying to convince people who have done computer science degrees to that, look, this is an avenue. You don't have to be in IT. You can work on a Marvel movie or a TV show with that skill set, you know, but it's about getting that information out there.
Yeah. And I mean, some roles are naturally a little bit technical anyway. So the idea of like a TA, for example, is well, it depends a little, but like a technical assistant, for example, is one version of TA. So, you know, if you're a lighting TA, you still need to have the lighting skills and know how lighting shots work, but it's also more about the render part of it. So, you know, why is it maybe not working on the farm? Like, is it dropping frames? Like bug fixes, those kinds of things. We're not expecting you to be like a full-on tech whiz and know how to solve it. Sometimes it's just about figuring out exactly what the problem is so that then you can escalate it to someone in the pipeline department or something like that.
And how about, because we're hearing a lot about effects and sort of Houdini as skill sets are needed a lot as well. So we're really trying to build that up here. Are you getting that as well from your side?
Yeah, I mean, effects for us is a really new kind of thing. So we traditionally haven't done it, but it is something where we're starting to do it a bit more in-house. And we will continue to do it in the future. We're just starting to build a Houdini pipeline, for example. So it's definitely a skill. And I guess that includes more traditional effects like liquids, fire, smoke, water, destruction, those kinds of things, but also like creature or character effects. So things like some of it's almost like rigging, so setting up deformations on muscles and skin, stuff like that. But there's also simulation, so like cloth, hair, fur, those kinds of things. And then people can go and specialize in things like grooming after that.
It's such a wide area, isn't it?
It's really interesting too.
So, I mean, look, we're really trying to build up that area for industry as well, because we've been hearing about it. And so, Dylan, we've got some things that we've been kind of setting up now, right, for next year to support that industry. Right?
Yeah. No, I'm really excited about the stuff that we've been sort of talking about for next year. We've been talking a lot to industry, and apologies, I've gone a bit dark in here.
That's right. We can
it
still
doesn't
see.
look too creepy.
Yeah.
We've been talking to a lot to industry contacts, people like Rachel and others, and a lot has come back, especially in two specific areas. And so I'm really excited to announce what we're going to do for next year for some changes. One of those is that we're going to be launching a dedicated visual effects specialization. And so when we say visual effects, we're talking about, you have some live action footage, like usually the standard action movie kind of thing, and then something, you modify that somehow with computer graphics. It can be anything from just taking changing the sky, or putting a giant robot in the scene, or blowing up a building that exists in real life. So usually every year at the ALA we'll make a fully kind of animated film. So it's a little bit different in that there's no live action footage. We're kind of just generating everything from 3D animation. So what our plan is for next year is to also have a live action visual effects project. And it's going to be fairly small in scope. It's, because we're not going to be able to go out and get actors and shoot all this crazy stuff, but at least it'll give us an opportunity to kind of teach those extra sort of skills that we haven't really been covering off.
So the fundamentals should be the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crossover with what, we teach a lot of animation stuff that can cross over into the visual effects industry, like modeling and surfacing. If you're just making realistic models and, putting realistic textures on them, that's the same across both sort of disciplines. But things like with compositing, like the Rachel was mentioning, there's a lot of extra skills involved in the visual effects sides, things like keying green screen, so they're getting rid of the green backgrounds that they'll shoot. Rotoscoping, tracing people out or things out of the plate and sort of copying and pasting them and putting them in between, things like that. camera tracking and all that kind of stuff. And so that's in our plan for next year, that would be part of this visual effects specialization. And so, yeah, so we'll have our normal animated film, and we'll also have our visual effects project as well.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Sorry?
I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how it happens next year, because we've just, just what can come out of focusing a bit more on that area will be great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forgot to mention there's a couple other areas as well, like lighting as well. Yeah. When you're lighting an animated feature, you can it's more about sort of telling the story and, sort of doing those kind of things. Whereas with lighting for visual effects, you're more kind of matching the lighting that kind of already exists in the scene first, and then also trying to sort of bring out where the audience needs to be looking and make it look beautiful and stuff too. So yeah, there's a lot of extra stuff that I can't wait to sort of get into with next year's students. The second area that everyone's been screaming for, and we've spoken a little bit about already, which is my area of expertise, is for Houdini. And we already have like a lot of great success with our Houdini students. We've placed them in a lot of great companies working on cool jobs and stuff like that. But we've sort of identified a need, I guess, to expand the amount of time that we spend on Houdini for the year. So we've made some tweaks as far as like making sure that we can put as much time as possible into the students who are focused on Houdini. And because, sometimes, like for instance, this year, our animated film doesn't have a lot of like your standard Houdini. Houdini is kind of, so visual simulations, fire, explosions, stuff like that. So Spirit, we had tons. It was great. Last year's film, Spirit, had fire and all this stuff. This year is a bit of a smaller, sort of more story-focused and less action-focused film. So the cool thing is the visual effects specialization will also feed into our Houdini, enhanced Houdini training as well, in that we're definitely going to have some kind of crossover between the Houdini students having more sort of simulation-based stuff to work on if the animated film doesn't have so much, So, we're really excited to kind of, bring all that. And also, again, the character effects and stuff as well, having a bit more time to sort of spend on a broader sort of part of Houdini, like making sure that the students have a broader knowledge that can include stuff like the character effects pipeline and stuff like that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And it just means that, we can have a little bit more fun maybe next year with what the project is too.
Yeah, exactly.
Get more effects. Fantastic. Look, well, we've got a bit over 10 minutes now to answer some questions. I can see that there's a bunch come up there, 11 already. So let's see if we can get through them all in that time. All right, so here we go. First one first few actually have a few thumbs up, so let's get through them. From Anonymous, since the course is 1 year accelerated, how many days, hours, and a week do we have to attend? So, like we said, it does replicate industry, and we do the same hours. We are 9 to 5, 5 days a week. That being said, we do have on Fridays, it's called a self-learning day. So that is up to the students to kind of monitor themselves and work on their own projects as well. So it is not necessary to kind of be in studio over those days as well. So really it's kind of 9 to 5, 4 days a week. But, as we said before, the people who work on their projects on those Fridays, end up with better reels by the end of the year. Dylan, do you want to take the next one? You're muted, by the way, mate, if you're talking.
I'll mute. So from Jackie, based on the current COVID situation, will this be face-to-face or virtual classes for next year? We are planning on it being face-to-face. I mean, it's primarily, whenever possible, we are face-to-face. So the big question will be, I'm assuming by then we'll be out of lockdown. And so our current plan at the moment is absolutely to be face-to-face. But yeah, like Alex said, we've got lots of experience that I don't even want to say it, but if there was another lockdown, then we'd get everything, set up. But yeah, definitely face-to-face as much as possible.
100. Well, look, last year we were 50% of the year remote, and we got out like easily the hardest, most difficult technical project yet. and that was done remotely. This year we've been, you know, a lot remote as well, and the students have done an incredible job. So, yeah. Hey, Rachel, you can help me with this one. What other animation companies except Flying Bark and Animal Logic are there in Australia? I was just going through them in my head. So ILM, obviously.
Yeah. I guess
Mighty Nice.
It's a little bit of a two-folder, because there are some that are VFX. So, I mean, they do animation, and there is some crossover there. So, yeah, ILM, I think, do both. Animal Logic, obviously. In Sydney, we've got Cheeky Little is another.
Mighty Nice, Cheeky Little. I keep getting them mixed up.
So I think Mighty Nice, they do, I think they're doing TV work now as well, but they mostly do TVC sort of stuff. Cheeky, like us, so they do 2D and 3D, which is a cool mix. What else have we got? Australia-wise, there's quite a few. I mean, the slides that we had before, where some of your students have gone, like Pixel Zoo in Brisbane, I'm pretty sure it's in Brisbane.
Blackbird actually here in Sydney is doing some work.
Blackbird.
I'm drawing a blank now.
There's also like in VFX, there's Cutting Edge, there's Method. Dylan and I worked at Method.
Rising Sun, of course, Rising Sun.
Finn
Finn's
doing
some work.
They've blown up lately. Like they've grown huge.
Look, there's a lot. A lot is the answer. Loads.
I would recommend following the companies on things like LinkedIn or well, I mean, you can have a bit of a Google as well to find more, but have a look around and see what kind of style of work that people are doing, and what the work they're doing, if that interests you, because there's a lot of very different types of work happening around Australia too, which is pretty cool. So if you can find the places that align with what you want to do, or the kind of place where you want to work in culture-wise, like those kinds of things. It's sometimes it's not just about the work, it's about what, apart from the work, the company brings to the table. So there's a lot of choice.
Absolutely. Here's another one for you, Rachel. I might kind of summarize. It's from Wes Champion. So he's seems like he was a veteran back in the day at the old Disney studio. He was a color stylist supervisor then. Actually, I did my internship there as well back in Surrey Hills back in the day. So he's been out of the industry for a while, and he's super keen to get back in. And he wants to know whether or not he should apply for a course like this or in other areas to skill up, I guess, in, you know, animation, shotgun, you know, or sort of like modern production tracking. Actually, he was looking at applying for a production-based role as well. So would someone like him need to, people have been out of the industry for a while, do they need to skill up in certain areas to get back in again?
Look, I would say that it will definitely help you. Not that we have never hired anyone that maybe doesn't know. Well, we use ShotGrid at Shotgun is now ShotGrid, for those of you who don't know, because Autodesk. But yeah, so I mean, we do use that in the studio, and being in a production role, you will spend your life on that website. So knowing it will definitely help you. And sometimes it depends on the opportunity. So if we know ahead of time that, like, I'm looking now for roles that are starting next year, we might have time for either you to learn or us to have a bit of a ramp up for you to learn the programs, that kind of thing. But a lot of the time we don't. Or if we we're in the middle of a production and it's we need some more help, then we'd look for people who already have at least a basic knowledge of those things, because we don't have that time to teach you, because it's already like a crucial role that we need to fill. So I would say it definitely does help. And I mean, that I really don't see a downside if you have the opportunity to study for you doing it. I just would always recommend that if you can.
Well, this next question kind of rolls off the back of that one from Warwick. Hello, Rachel. From a recruitment perspective for production coordinator assistant roles, Does having the MAV but an unrelated bachelor's degree still make you a competitive candidate for entry-level production?
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't matter, I think, what your other degree is. If you have done this course, then I would look at that and go, okay, so I know that you know ShopGrid. I know that you understand the pipeline and how one department feeds into the other. I know that you have experience with scheduling, even if it's obviously a shorter projects that you would do in this kind of situation. So yeah, quantity wise, you will have to learn that when you go out into the big wide world. But a lot of those kinds of things are the experiences that will set you up for sure. I'm not promising to hire you if you do this course, so please don't take it that way. A lot of it is also on you to learn the skills and bring that to the table. But
For sure.
I would say that always, if you can get the experience, then do it. And it doesn't matter what your study is before that.
Great. Well, look, this is a similar question. Dylan, I might throw this to you.
Yeah, sure.
And we get this asked this a lot, actually. It's about people who come from different backgrounds. So Matthew has asked about a lot of MAV applicants have to submit a showreel. He's coming from a software engineer background, but playing with Blender and Unreal after work outside of hours. So does the MAV consider candidates with different backgrounds like that? And what would be your recommendation for candidates like him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, like, you know, having that kind of technical background as well is great for a lot of areas in 3D. And I guess the question I would have is, are you still enjoying being a software engineer, and would you like to apply that to our industry, because you would be in massive demand, as Rachel said. So if I would definitely, like, if you're interested in taking your sort of software engineering skills into animation, just apply. Don't even ask the question. If you're more interested in kind of changing and going into more of a 3D sort of animation role, then you kind of, I mean, apply anyway, and we'll talk to you. That's all I can say. Yeah. we'll see sort of where you're at and where you want to go, kind of thing. And we can work.
Look, I'll add to that, because we do get asked this a lot, because people do look at the work that we put out there and get kind of intimidated a bit about the level of work that the graduates that we're putting out, and looking at their own portfolio and showreel. And you know, there's a little bit of the social media effect going on here, the Instagram kind of life, in that we are showing the best of the work, right? Because we want to show off the students' work. But the reality is, where people come from are the same as all of you. They've come straight from kind of postgraduate degrees and are really kind of very junior. And, you know, if you're outputting work at that level already, then you don't need us. You know, you can go straight into industry. So really, you know, I recommend people to apply with what you have. And I promise you that it's better than you think it is, because at that stage, we know where you are. We know what level of experience you have, and all we're really looking for is kind of, you know, a passion and dedication and sort of potential at that point, you know, because no one's going to have a great reel coming straight out of university. So don't feel intimidated or scared of putting your work forward. All right.
Am I able to chime in?
Yeah, please do, Jess. Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw a lot of questions that are asking like what sort of background people are coming from as well.
Yeah.
In the cohort. And I just wanted to mention that a lot of our cohort right now is quite mixed in terms of their background. So some people come from fashion, or some people come from IT. I came from UX, and others come from gaming. Like all of these skills, you'd be surprised, also come in handy. Like, it might sound completely on a different spectrum, but my UX helped with Studio 2 with emerging technology, and graphic design helped with art department, and, you know, fashion helps with Houdini clothing sims, I think. So everyone sort of helps each other, and you can also use those past skills to teach other people as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I absolutely agree. You know, one of the questions we ask people when they come and interview is, what jobs have you had? And they think, oh, in industry. And we're like, no, have you have you worked as a shop assistant? Have you kind of delivered pizza? Because it all adds to life experience, and it's about communication and dealing with people, and it kind of builds, it's great having people from different backgrounds. Now, look, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I did want to show a bit of information at the end before we all go. So I might just burn through a few of these questions quickly. As a first year uni student, what is the best possible way to build a portfolio outside of uni work? Obviously, just continuing to work in your skill set at home. There's a lot of software nowadays has free educational versions that you can download. Blender is obviously free as well. I think on Maya, there's still an educational version of Maya you can use. So I recommend doing that. And there's a lot of great tutorials online. If anyone's interested, Dylan here, he's the Blender expert, and he has some great tutorials online on YouTube. So track him down. I see a lot of jobs in the industry are X-month contract based. How stable do you think the employment is in this sector? Look, it's more stable than you think. We have an interesting thing where a lot of our contracts are what's called full-time contract. But Rachel, do you want to comment on that, just in terms of the quick little comment on sort of stability, I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the industry is contract based because you're employed to work on a specific production. So we would employ you to work on a season of something or a film or whatever. But at the same time, we've had people who started on a contract, and the idea is to keep you rolling from one to the next. So we've had people who have been here 5-6 years consistently as a fixed term contractor. And you're still an employee, you still have all the leave and everything else that comes with it. It's just technically you have new contracts every now and then. It's not always that stable. Sometimes the work does vary a little bit, but I would say that you will not have that problem. You may, but I would say it's a lot less likely that you will have that problem these days, because there is so much work around from so many different places, big and small. So if you can keep your skills adaptable and keep getting better at what you do, I don't think you'll have much of a problem.
Yeah, good one. Thank you. And last one quickly from Elke. I'm very interested in being a production manager. What is the best avenue to go? Production assistant to production coordinator? I'd assume so, but Rachel, any last quick comment on that?
If you can, yes, I would say that. Some people are lucky and can start as a co-ord, but I would say that it's more likely to be an assistant, and you work your way up. And there's usually a reason for that, experience and the different departments, basically.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, look, I just wanted to say a big thank you to panelists here. Rachel, thank you so much for taking time out of, I know you're very, very busy at the moment. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Dylan, thanks a lot, mate. I'll see you tomorrow. And same with you, Jess. Thanks so much. I know it's late hours. Appreciate you hanging back after school hours and chatting to everyone. Brilliant. So before everyone goes, I'm just going to quickly share my screen again to show a little bit more last information. So for next year, please do apply. We are looking for students who want to specialize in these departments, and we're doing something different for next year, is that what we really want to do is recruit people for these teams. So, we're looking for sort of 5 or 6 people per team, so we can really set up the pipeline and the department process properly. So if you have any interest in these areas, please do apply. Also, if there were any other questions that you felt like you didn't get answered, you can also go through that process and apply as well. We have some more stuff coming up. So we have a webinar on the 14th of October at 5:30 on portfolios. That's good for people. That's a couple of weeks before the finalization of our application date, if you want to kind of go over your portfolio before applying. But also for anyone who's really just interested in getting some help with your portfolio reel for getting into industry. Our application dates are below that. So international finalised dates are the 29th and domestic is the 31st. Now, something really, really important, because this is asked, I wish I'd said this earlier, but if you're currently studying, you can still apply. Okay, that happens to a lot of people. You don't have to have finished your undergrad in order to apply. We can give you a conditional offer. Obviously, you need to pass your undergrad. So assuming you pass, you're still absolutely valid to apply for the MAV for next year. And yeah, look, get in touch, follow us on our socials, because we're updating our work on there all the time and showing off what we're working on, and also presenting information about these things, our webinars that come up. And we're doing another new thing at the moment as well. If you'd like to get any sort of one-on-one advice or questions about this, you can book a one-on-one consultation. It's about 15 minutes with me or Dylan to go over any concerns or questions you might have. And that's it. So look, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you again to the panel, and hopefully we'll be seeing some of you for next year.